So I spent half my mission in Bangkok, which is a lot of tall buildings, city. It's very similar to like New York, just really busy, traffic, lots of people. That's a fair comparison. Thailand's definitely hotter, a lot more crowded. My other half of my mission I spent up north in an area called Chiang Mai and Pitsanulok. And that's more comparable to like countryside, I think. It's a lot more open space. It's really green. It's really pretty. The weather isn't, it's not too hot, but it's still hot. It's comparable to like our summers here, maybe a little bit more humid. And I think that one of the most common things you'll see in Bangkok and in Chiang Mai as well is like the houses are, they're not like townhouses, but how do you call them? I don't know what they're called in English, but they're just like buildings stuck together. They're called mubans, and like they are usually 2 levels, and then they'll have like a gate in front, and then like the 2 sides. So if this is the street, there's 2 sides. There's just gated houses, and they're just all stuck together. And usually, like an average home for a Thai person is just like a 1 room. And they'll have like mats that they'll roll out to sleep on. And then when it's like, when they're just doing like their day-to-day thing, they'll just roll them up and push them in the corners. So it's very simple, and like you'll see a variety of things. There's definitely people who have like bigger houses and houses similar to like here you'll find in the States. But the average Thai person lives in a very small, humble, like 1 room apartment.
So I was really blessed to have lived in Thailand for 9 years, or have a lot of international experience. So yeah, I did spend 9 years in Thailand and my mission in Korea, and I did get to travel quite a bit while I was living in Thailand. They are quite dramatically different. Thailand recently does have a little bit, they're getting some Japanese influence in, because they're becoming a first world country. And so if you ever go visit Thailand, actually, I mean, you can stay in places that you can be quite comfortable. The government, my dad was working for NSA, and so the government actually gave us a really nice package. So we were well taken care of while we were there. Thailand, in my opinion, has probably some of the best food in the world. You can go, I mean, Korea has great food too. It's fabulous food. But as far as being foreign friendly and being able to eat just about anything, Thailand is pretty good. They have a few dishes in Thailand that I probably wouldn't eat, or I would avoid, especially if you're out on the street. I be careful about going to the street vendors. You never know how that's been prepared or how sanitary that is. But on occasion, there are a couple that are pretty good. The differences between Thailand and Korea, though, is that I would say that, for one thing, Korea is a little more developed as far as their economy and their infrastructure. And then the culture is quite dramatically different. There's still some culture similarities. It's interesting when you go back in Asian history, a lot of culture and like a lot of their culture heritage and language stems from Chinese. So with Korea, it stems from like a northern dialect, from what I understand. It comes from like a way up north dialect, and so Koreans actually share, I think they even might share some bits and pieces from Mongols, but I can't be sure. And then obviously there's some Chinese influence on the Japanese language. And in Thai language actually, the Thai language comes from Chinese, along with, it's a combination of Chinese and Sanskrit, which comes from India. So, which is probably why their cultures are still, why they share some similarities, but why they're also dramatically different. Because Korea has a lot of culture similarities to Japan, which is very, very North Chinese. And then Thai is like Southern Chinese mashed with some Indian culture. And so and so like the feeling between the countries when I was there was very different. I saw a lot more Buddhism, like Theravada Buddhism, actually specifically in Thailand, and where they wear the yellow robe, and they I didn't see many of the switched swastikas. It's interesting. A Buddhist symbol is a swastika, is like I think a turned or rotated swastika. And so I remember seeing that on occasion in Korea and being like, what? I hardly ever saw that in Thailand, but I'm sure it's probably there, and I just missed it. But Thailand, because it's much more of a Buddhist country, you see a lot more Buddhist temples and ancient Buddhist temples. Thailand has a lot more curries that are really, really good, particularly down south. If you go up north, the food's a little bit different, actually, in northern Thailand. My favorites are, I love the curries there, like Gang Masaman and Penang, and I like Pak Kaprao, which is like this fried spicy pork. They have up north this thing called Som Tam, which is papaya salad. They have really good mangoes, so Thailand has a lot more tropical fruit, which is really good. Absolutely fabulous. Some culture things about Thailand is you can't touch anybody's head. That's very inappropriate. Don't know why. Like, I think it has something to do with their head is clean and your hands are probably not as clean. But I can't remember. But that's something that's probably important to remember. Yeah, like, it's not as developed in Thailand, so you're going to see more poor people for sure. You're going to probably be in areas where they don't have certain amenities that you might require or want, such as a functional toilet. I mean, they'll have that probably in most of your areas. I mean, granted, I didn't serve mission in Thailand, so I don't know if I'm really qualified to speak of the missionary experience or about missionary housing in Thailand. But the people in Thailand are absolutely fabulous. I mean, they call it the land of smiles just because they're so nice and kind. As far as safety, though, I would be a little more concerned in Thailand. I've known many people who have had their wallet stolen because they were pickpocketed. So just be aware of that. There is a higher crime rate in Bangkok and Thailand. There's a little more violent crime. Typically not to missionaries, though. I've never heard that. One thing that's probably important about Thailand is you do not insult the king or Buddhism in any way. So, and I mean, and insults can run in a variety of ways. We had missionaries in Thailand sent home because they were climbing and taking pictures on a big Buddhist statue, and they were deported from the country and sent home. Don't do that. Don't take pictures of Buddhists or Buddha statues. That's very sacred and that's very inappropriate, and you will get yourself out of the country very fast if that happens. So be very careful, be very watchful of that. Do not insult the king. He's actually quite a good man. Granted, he doesn't have a lot of power, but he's done some good as far as being an influence on the country. He's done quite a bit of good. So those are probably some things to keep in mind. Korea is quite a bit more developed in their republic. And so they have a republic government.
So after living in Thailand for a while, about a year, close to a year, and then going to Laos, there was a big difference. Thailand, to give you an idea, it's more westernized, I guess you can say. There's a lot more commercial marketing and that sort of living, businesses and stuff like that. So with that, there was advertising. There's some of the same things that you see in our world here in America, just sometimes morality that can go down and stuff. People show free, there's free reign and speech and opinions and stuff like that. Going to Laos was really awesome. I will say the greatest thing I loved was the modesty. It was huge difference, and it was awesome. All the women would wear skirts in Laos, these sort of Laotian skirts. It was a really cool fabric, and they would wear it. It was always just past their knees, maybe about halfway down their shins sometimes. So it was really modest, and it was a huge difference on just how you stay focused as a missionary, walking down the street and talking to people. In Thailand, it's not as much like that. It's more westernized in America, where people wear shorter clothing or more revealing clothing, and even billboards or posters where they can show a little more immodesty. So that was a huge difference. In Thailand, there's a joke that they say there's 3 seasons where it's hot, hotter, and then hottest. But in actuality, which it feels like that sometimes, but there's the dry season, wet season, and then the cold season. So it doesn't really get that cold ever unless you're up in northern Thailand, which my first area was. It can get chilly in the mornings, mostly, and at night. Sometimes you'll see a fog, mist early in the mornings, which is really cool. That was my first area. So like the very first morning I got there, when we got off the night bus, I got off and there was kind of this fog. It was just quiet, small town, and that was kind of my first view of northern Thailand. It was chilly, but they'll wear big coats and earmuffs and everything while we're still wearing our short sleeve white shirts and stuff on our bikes. So, and it gets really hot after the cold season, mostly March, April. April's the hottest month. And then May, then June and July, August are kind of the wet months from what I could tell from the 2 years I was there. It would start to rain a lot and a ton and more and then more and more. So it flooded a few times in the streets where we'd walk through floods with our shoes. So I would totally recommend getting 2 pairs of shoes, the same by the way, and then switching them out every day. They'll last so much longer and they go through a lot. So in Thailand, the people are very friendly, especially the foreigners. I think there's a lot of tourism in Thailand, and that's where they get a lot of their income. So they're very especially good to foreigners, which is nice. And there's a lot of different things you can do. Thailand's known to be a kind of that's where you go, or a tourist destination. What's the word? When you retire, a retired destination. And so a lot of people will go there. You'll meet a lot of foreigners and stuff in Thailand. Most people, when you go out into Thailand, there's a lot of people who do their own small businesses, selling foods on the street. There's a lot of little restaurants and vendors, which is fun because you get to try a lot of different foods. And if you need food, you just walk down the street a little bit and you'll always find food. In Laos, there's not as many vendors. And work-wise, where I was in Laos, in Vientiane, the capital of the city, there's more government buildings and stuff like that. Vientiane is a communist country still. Thailand's not. It's a lot more westernized. And so in Laos, it's a lot cleaner in Vientiane. It's a lot cleaner roads, and there's more cars. Whereas in Thailand, especially in Bangkok, you'll see buses, taxis, a lot. In Vientiane, there's big trucks. I noticed that there's a lot of big trucks and nicer cars that you would see where you wouldn't see them in Thailand. This is all in Vientiane. And with all these big government buildings and the cleanliness, and you see a lot of modesty, then you just go outside a little bit from the main part of the city, and it turns very quickly into dirt roads, red dirt roads, very poor, more poor than you see in Thailand. Poverty, more people who do little businesses and small vendors and stuff like that. Some people live their whole lives just peeling apart in peppers into little pans. You'll see them. They do that day after day until they're 80. Sometimes it's kind of sad. But like I said, they're very kind people. In Laos, for example, we went to the early morning market on Saturday to get some vegetables and food for the week. We left behind a bag of fruit after we paid for it and everything. With all the other bags we picked up, we took off, and we realized we forgot our fruit. We came back, and the lady had held on to this bag of fruit for us until we came back. Then she gave it to us. So they're very kind in that way, in that regard. So they very honest people and things like that. In Thailand, there's quite a few places. There's a lot of waterfalls. Mainly when I was up in the northern Thailand, I went to a lot of places. There's famous Wat, which you'll hear Wat a lot, which is a Buddhist temple. And Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, the elephants. You'll get to ride an elephant, which is pretty fun, pretty cool. A lot of animal life. You can see tigers, elephants, big snakes. One of the areas you can see monkeys, which you have to be wary of because they will attack you and take anything that you have on your body away from you. Alligators. We went to an alligator crocodile show, which was pretty fun. So there's hikes and stuff you can do to waterfalls on P-Day, depending on how your mission has policies and getting permission and stuff. And so that's pretty fun. A lot of tourist items you can buy and paintings. People who live their life off of tourism, where they will do carvings of elephants and stuff like that. Mostly in Thailand, there's buses. You can usually get around with buses and taxis very well. We rode bikes all the time, most areas, except in Bangkok. Usually when you're in Bangkok, there's enough buses and taxis, and where it's safer to do that than ride your bike, especially. Although missionaries, I believe, still do it. Laos, bike riding all the time. It's a small enough city, and it gets pretty rural right outside of the main city. So we would ride bikes. So in Thailand, $1 is about 32 baht, which you can buy a decent plate of food, 35 baht. So you can get a meal for $1 in Thailand. In Laos, $1 or 30 baht is about what they call geeb, and it's 7,000 geeb. So they deal with a lot larger numbers. So the lowest bill or currency you would have is 1,000 geeb. So sometimes it was easier just to refer to it as 1 geeb, but it's technically 1,000 geeb. So 7,000 geeb is $1 or 30 baht, I believe. But they were a little bit more expensive in Laos, so it would cost us about 10,000, 12, 14,000 geeb. So sometimes almost double, maybe like $1.50 or $2 for a plate of food in Laos compared to Thailand. Living where we were in Laos, there's only 4 missionaries or volunteers technically in Laos at the time, and we were right in the middle of the capital, and it was a lot more expensive to live there. I think I remember it being about 200 to 250,000. No, I can't. Was it 1,000? 200 to 250,000 geeb, I think, to live there. I can't remember if that was a month or not, but so it was really expensive. I just remember that. Where we were in Laos, it was a lot more expensive. I can't compare it to dollars, but compared to Thailand, it was a lot more expensive in Laos. In Thailand, I'm not sure exactly how much it cost to live there, but